What I'm going to talk about now is not signaling how much work they have to do. Have you noticed that's devoid here? There is no signaling. There is no saying, thank you for coming to the table. We're going to work on, we have to get 12 correct, and then we'll go play. There's no foreshadowing. There's no if-then statements. I'm going to describe a study that's yet unpublished. It's a study on whether kids prefer predictable or unpredictable teaching environment, predictable or unpredictable reinforcement in teaching. It goes like this. If you go to this space, it's the predictable space. In the predictable space, we give an instruction. You have to do 8 in a row, 8 correct to get your way. Give them the warning. If you do 8 correct, then you get your way. Then there's a box on the wall, a rectangle with 8 little boxes. Every time they do it correct, they get a token. When they get 8, we say, good job, it's your way time. It's always 8. They do 5 of those in a row, so a total of 40 learning trials in that experience. This is what we call predictable, because it's fixed, it's always 8, and it's signaled through the words and the laminate. Here is called unpredictable. They're going to be rewarded with my way if they do 8 correct on average. But sometimes they're going to have to do 16. Sometimes 1. Sometimes 12. Sometimes 4. I don't know the exact math, but it's something like that. There's no instructions. It's unsignaled and variable, thereby unpredictable. In this third one, there's no reinforcement. That's the control link. So if they choose them all equally, they don't know what we're asking them. It's indiscriminate. If they do not pick this one, but they pick these two similarly, it means they're indifferent. The difference in these conditions doesn't matter to them. But the data shows, our data shows that it does matter to them. And by and large, kids pick one over the other regularly. Which one do you think? I mean, I'm setting you up. It's a softball, if you will. It's unpredictable. Kids prefer the unpredictable context. So the implications might be, and I'm not sure, we need a lot more research in this area. A lot more is a great research area. But they might be telling us that they don't want us to foreshadow the doom. They might be telling us they don't need the if-then statements. They might be telling us we don't need to signal to them when they're getting close to the end. They might be. What do you think is controlling their preference here, though? What's driving the bus, if you will? We are keeping hope alive here. And what is the fundamental part of the process, of the procedures that's keeping hope alive? What's the procedural element? It's not necessarily the choice is part of the process, and that is an active variable in a lot of our treatments. We think it's the yes? That's right, it's variable ratio. And what's the part of the variable ratio that drives people to select variable ratio environments? The reinforcement now. The possibility of a short one. That's why we go to Vegas. That's why anyone gambles. It's the possibility of a little effort or a little money for a big payout. It's the short ones. We have a name for those. We call them shorties. Please don't forget. So you won't forget, I spent a lot of time on my PowerPoint slides for this. Check that out. I made a box and I made big font. Okay? That means it's important. Shorties never go away. Okay, buddy, put your iPad up, go to the table, we're going to do a whole bunch of work. Okay, sits down, gets to work. You're so great, get out of here. Do you see what I mean? That's a shorty in action. Shorties are very powerful. Like you said, Penny, they keep hope alive. So it doesn't end up at the end of treatment that they go in, they're always doing 10. Now I know if they're in an inclusive educational environment, teachers are going to want them to always complete the lesson with the rest of the learners. We recommend shorties on a class-wide basis. Okay, class, everyone pull out your math worksheet, sharpen your pencils. We're going to do timed math to prepare you for some standardized test. Everyone ready? On your mark, get set, go, and everybody puts their pencil to the paper. You guys are awesome. Let's go play. Let's go to recess. Shorties are powerful. I'm going to come back to cab 6. Now check this out. See that box? I tilted it. And I changed the color. That means it's wicked important. Surprise shorties. are the best. They're very powerful. A shorty just means you're going to always keep a low work requirement in there. A surprise shorty is you give them discriminative stimuli that suggest that life is going to be terrible, and it's going to be terrible for a while, and there's going to be a whole lot of work to do. You say, we're going to write 4 essays today, my man. I'm so sorry, but it's going to be a lot of work. Sharpen up all those pencils. Your writing prompts are there. I'll check in with you at the end of the day. And the child just says, okay. And they go and they sharpen their pencils and they get to work. You say, my man, we are going to play video games all day today. You are the man. That's a surprise shorty. Please understand, surprise shorties are exceptionally powerful. We need to do more research on this, but I strongly recommend surprise shorties. There's probably nothing in this process I like more, this entire process, than this concept of surprise shorties. It keeps hope alive. It keeps relationships fun. Know this about kids. Kids who start, finish. Kids who try, succeed. Kids who don't start will never finish. Kids who don't try cannot succeed. What you are doing, what we are doing in this process, above all else, is teaching kids to try, to start, ultimately to persist. That's the repertoire we're talking about here. So be liberal with your shorties. Be liberal with your surprise shorties. Okay. Now when I say be liberal with your surprise shorties, we have time for this. Some of you might be giggling to yourself. Is anyone laughing right now? A little privately. Trying to see you in the room. I'm checking out Ian for a minute. No? Okay. You're on my radar. My wife loves hip hop. My son, oldest son, loves hip hop. I like all sorts of music, but I like hip hop too. I know all the bands that are on SoundCloud, people that are on the radio. If they're on the radio, they're not cool enough for my family. Okay. So I listen to the words of these songs. I worry my daughter's in the car. I don't like all that way they talk about women sometimes, but she's 14. She can handle it. Okay. At least that's what I tell myself. I learned in these songs that they talk a lot about shorties. You know what a shorty is? A shorty is your little girlfriend, right? You know what a surprise shorty is? When she shows up unannounced, middle of the night. That too is a surprise shorty. That's not what we're talking about here, people. We are not talking about surprise shorties from the hip-hop culture. We're talking about surprise shorties in the SBT process, skill-based treatment. Don't forget about surprise shorties. They have power, as you know if you got entangled with one. Anyway, the point being, use them. Okay, now we're on Cab 6. Cab 6 is the last part. Cab 6 is fun. Cab 6 is where you get together with a team and say, hey, they're doing great. They're relinquishing their reinforcers. They're transitioning to the tables of high expectations. They're doing a lot of work, more work than they've ever done before. Everything's going great. What do you think we haven't exposed them to that might happen as we transfer the treatment out? Now let's expose them to that. Here are some examples. Sometimes we're working on discriminations that are too simple, but what they're going to be expected to do in class is a little more challenging, so let's work that in there. My favorite one is some kids are going to get corrected even when they're accurate to begin with. We need to expose them to that. It sounds mean. We're not being mean. We've developed a strong relationship with the child, and if you want, foreshadow before you go into Cab 6s if they have language. Today's going to be tricky. Be on your toes. I'm going to introduce very challenging situations, and I know you can handle it. Let's go practice. Here's an example. Child with autism, high functioning, good at math. We're going to take them to a new level of math. Say they're very young, but they're already working on long multiplication. I can't do long multiplication in my head, so we're going to keep it short. 6 times 6, they write 36, and you say, I'm sorry, my man, erase that, try again. That's incorrect. That's what I mean. Now, a lot of kids with autism like that have a strong sense of justice. So that might lead immediately to some severe behavior, maybe in the past. Give the foreshadow, maybe even give a little wink. 6 times 6 is not 36. Try again. Do you see what I mean? Have a relationship here. Try to soften the blow. Try to teach them what can you do in that situation. Maybe they advocate. Maybe they simply erase it, write 36 again, and give time for the teacher to recoup their math knowledge. Give them strategies. Give them skills. Sometimes what we do is we bring in a second person at this time, and we divide our attention to that person instead of being right there during the teaching lesson. Sometimes we'll bring in loud noises. We'll bring in other peers. We'll bring in their nemesis. This is where we might bring in another child into the room. Okay, cab 6 is fun. Have fun with it. Okay. I'm not showing that slide. That's a mess. I'm going to say this instead, and we're going to end this section. What do you do when problem behavior returns in this process? Ian has a fast response. Ian, what did you say?
Slice back.
Slice back. Man, that is some fast, and I like the words. I don't know exactly what you mean, Ian, but I like it. I think what you mean by slice back is go back to an earlier step in the process. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Precision teaching.
I like, oh, is that precision teaching? I'm sorry, that was over 2 decades ago for me at the Grodin Center. I left those acceleration charts in my office in the basement of that group home. I never looked back. Sorry, I admit it. Okay. What I want you to consider doing here, I think we're probably on the same page, Ian. When problem behavior returns in this process, there are actually a lot of options. And I want to talk about the option we tend to prefer and why we prefer it. It goes like this. If the child, in the data sheet it says a cab 5, what that means is when they mand, you're not going to honor the mand. When they tolerate, you're not going to honor that. You're going to transition. You're going to do some work until they satisfy maybe the goal of doing 12 in a row correctly. Now you stand up, and as soon as you stand up, they say, excuse me, may I have my way, please? And you're like, I'm sorry, not right now. And then they hit you, right then and then. They said the my way thing, I denied it, and they hit me. Now I want you to think, put yourself in that situation and think. There are a lot of options here. What are you going to do? Just think, don't answer it. Here's what we recommend. The rule of thumb. Prompt the behavior expected in the moment and reinforce it, or continue on to your destination. That's the choice. The first part's invariant. Prompt the expected behavior. What is the expected behavior right now? I denied her, so the expected behavior is a tolerant response. It is not prompting my way. They already did my way. The chain of behavior. Where are you in the chain? So I say, just say okay. She says okay. I'm like, very nice. Now here's the choice point. You can either say, good job saying okay. You can have your way. Now please know, she did not know I was aiming for a cab 5, yes? In her world, reinforcement could be provided for communication, toleration, transitioning, In my head, I had cab 5. You are not teaching her any bad things by caving at that point and moving off the data sheet. It's not a bad option. But the alternative is, all you have to do is say okay. She says okay. And then you say, good, I'm glad you're cool with that. Put that away. Good, stand up and keep it in place. Go to cab 5. How do you know which one to do? What happened on the previous trial? What happened the last time you elected to do A or B? Let the child teach you how to teach them. Okay, be very sensitive to their performance here. Here are the other options. This isn't a bad option. We're doing it. Problem behavior occurs. I just reinforce it. It's not a bad option, folks. I would rather you reinforce problem behavior than completely did what we call full extinction. Not prompt the response, and they keep hitting and escalating, and you keep working them through until they satisfy the cab 5 requirement. That, to me, is not good. And I wouldn't even do that with a 2-year-old. Now, why won't I do that anymore? I publish studies on extinction. I respect all those studies on extinction. I won't do that anymore because my number 1 priority is safety. My number 2 priority is televisability. And my number 3 priority is rapport. And please know, when you do escape extinction with a learner with autism, and they can talk, and you see them 2 years later, chances are the first thing they're going to say to you is, you remember that time Remember that time you held me? Remember that time you made me match colors? I know it seems a little weird. Maybe even I'm threatening you with an unfortunate interaction in Target. That's where I always run into kids. Anyway, my point is this. There are a lot of options on the table. Do what you think is best given the learner's history and what you can defend. But I would prefer you consider always prompting the expected behavior and either reinforcing it or moving on towards the expectation. I don't like it when you work through escalated behavior. I think those days are behind us. And if you want to get fancy, you can do what my colleague Laura Hanratty is about to publish on, and she calls it partial extinction. What she does is she always allows children to have escape following their problem behavior, but she does not provide the positive reinforcers. When you use synthesized reinforcers, you can do partial extinction. You have more degrees of freedom here. You can withhold some reinforcers and provide other reinforcers. By withholding some, you're motivating them to engage in skills. By providing some, you're keeping the peace. That's another alternative. I tend not to use it, but she has a wonderful study and she uses it with regularity, and it's been proven highly effective for her. Okay.